last year, February, March of last year, one of my daughters called me. She was in a job that was really physically demanding for her. I mean, I'll just tell you, she was a vet tech. So she was vet tech in the Twin Cities, and I don't know if you know anything about vet techs, but it's like a CNA job in the vet tech world. So you're like the lowest rung on the ladder, always, and you're dealing with big animals. She would deal with big dogs and cats and everything else, and she was constantly cut up and bruised by the dogs and the cats, not to mention dealing with angry parents or people, pet parents who'd bring their animals in, and working all hours of the day. She worked all night. They had an open night. They had a vet hospital that was open all night long. So the hours are demanding, the pay was poor, the environment was really, really unhealthy. She loved animals. So she was like, this is like, what do I do? And so as the year went on, she'd been doing this job for a while. She finally came to the decision, I need to make a change in my life. And so she started looking around, what do I want to do now? And there were a couple of opportunities that came up, and she really prayed. She really was seriously about seeking God. What do you want me to do? And a couple of opportunities came up, and she talked to me. One of them scared me, like, I don't think so. But, you do it. You're an adult. You make your own decision. But the other one both felt risky to me. But she really prayed about it, and she said yes to the one, and off she went. Now, the problem with the one was they weren't going to pay her. She had to go back to school and get training. And after training was over, it was a 100% commission-based opportunity. So you don't get a salary. You get what you sell. You get a percentage. So it's like, Dad, a little nervous about this, but she had saved up all of her money. So she had lots of money saved up to take this risk. And so she quit her job. She started living on her savings. One of the interesting things about my daughter is she decided during that time that she really needed to trust God more. So she began to give more to God at her church, thinking, I really need God, which is so counterintuitive for most people. It's like, if you don't have income coming in, you don't give more, right? You give nothing. People with income coming in, many of them don't give at all. And so here she is, she's going the other way. I have no income, I'm living on my savings, I'm going to give more. I need God to show up. And so she was like, I'm telling you, as a dad, this was a challenge for me to even watch. It's like, I wanted to say to her, don't give. I kept my mouth shut because I'm like, do you actually believe what you're saying, Brian? Do you actually believe that trusting God works? So it was like, well, I believe it for me, but how about my kids? Like, oh my goodness. And so she did it. She went through her schooling. The schooling was challenging and she loved it. And then she finished up her schooling. She got into the business, and the problem is she got in right before the holidays, which is really rough time to be in this field. But immediately she started to have some good success, and now here she is, January 2022, and I can tell you, I've never heard my daughter happier than she is. I've never seen her more excited than she is. There's no guarantee about what this year holds for her, but the potential now is amazing for what she could have in 2022 this year, because of the principle of the path. The principle of the path. That's not an original phrase with me. It comes from an author named Andy Stanley, who wrote a book called The Principle of the Path. Read it years ago, loved it. And I've talked to my kids about the principle of the path. The principle of the path is this. The path you're on will determine your ultimate destination. Well, that's not too confusing, right? But the path you're on will determine the ultimate destination. And what we know about paths is the direction determines your destination, not your intention. So this is really important, because people all the time say things like, well, I didn't want that to happen. I didn't mean for that to happen. Or they're like, how did that happen? It's like, your intentions don't matter. All that matters is the path that you choose. That's what matters. So for instance, if you live in Madison and someday you decide, I want to go to Milwaukee. And if I were to ask you, how many of you know what direction you have to go from Madison to get to Milwaukee? Some of you are so directionally challenged, you're like, that way? But you don't know. Okay, it's east. You have to go east from Madison to get to Milwaukee. But let's say that you get confused and you start going south from Madison. You will never get to Milwaukee by going south from Madison, ever. Now, you may not intend to get to Rockford, Illinois, but that's where you're going to get. It's like, no, I intended to go to Milwaukee. Intentions are irrelevant, right? Irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the choices that you make with the paths that you're on. Does that make sense? Your decisions matter, not what you intend. And the truth is, there are people who for 2022, this year is going to bring them, they're going to get fired from their job, right? There are people who get fired in 2022, right? Isn't that true? Some people that maybe you know, this is the year where they get fired. Now, if you talk to them right now and say, do you want to get fired in 2022? No. Is it your plan to get fired in 2022? No. Intentions are irrelevant. The choices you make, that's what's going to determine the outcome, your destination. It's the principle of the path. There are people this year who are going to end up so much closer to God by the end of the year. They're going to be so much closer to God by the end of the year. Why? Because of the decisions they make this year. They put themselves on a path that's going to bring them closer to God. Your decisions, it's the principle of the path. Your decisions determine your destination. Where are you headed? I really want you to think about that today. We're starting a brand new series called Fresh Start. I thought, that's a good thing to start talking about in January of a new year. And for those of you watching, I hope you're watching in January. But we are going to be talking about things that, if you want to have a better year, start with these things. And this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. We're going to start talking about how to get started on a new path. Because the truth is, some of you know that you need to. The paths you're on aren't bringing you what you want. And it's time to make some changes. So let's talk about this. I want to ask you to open your program and take out the notes that you'll find inside. Welcome to those of you who joined us this morning online. If you're watching at our website at penulchurchlife.com, I want to make sure that you know that the notes are right there as well. You can fill those out and follow along. Now, again, normally, time is always against me. So I want to let you know, I'm just going to summarize the first point. Okay, point number one, I'm going to give you all the blanks, so I'm going to do that at least, but we're going to go through it rather quick. So the first thing I want you to do is understand just how important paths really are. I want you to understand just how important paths are for your life. And like I said, I'm just going to give you these points. I'm not going to really spend any time talking about them because I want to get to point number two. The truth is this, all of us, we are all on multiple paths in our life. You're not on one path. You're on multiple paths. If you have your notes and you flip to the back, at the top, it says paths we are currently on. And we are on paths, financial paths, spiritual paths, career paths, marriage paths, relational, physical, and health paths, emotional, parenting, education. I didn't list them all, right? You're on all these paths. You've got, well, you may not be on a parenting path if you don't have children, but if you're not married, you still have relationships and friendships. So all of us are on paths. Here's the thing you need to know about paths. Every path is leading somewhere. If you get on I-94 and you start heading a direction, it's taking you somewhere. All your paths in life are leading you somewhere. They're all taking you somewhere. And I mean, the truth is, there are people whose paths this year are going to take them. In 2022, there are people who are going to be on a path that will leave them pregnant alone, raising a child alone. There are people whose path is going to take them to a sexually transmitted disease. There are people who are on a path that's going to leave them divorced or financially broke or all alone or very, very, very far from God, right? And then there are people whose paths are going to bring them closer to God and career success, and they're going to be debt-free, and they're going to be emotionally healthier, and they're going to be closer in their marriage, and they're going to have joy. The good news is you get to choose the path that you're on. Your paths are all leading you somewhere, and the key thing is this: I must take responsibility for my paths. I have to take responsibility for my paths. You don't always choose segments of your path, especially if you were abused. At any point in your life, if you ever suffered abuse, you didn't choose that segment of your path, okay? But I always choose what steps I take next. I did not choose the abuse I suffered as a child, but I certainly choose how I respond to what happened to me. Okay, this is really critical. Now, I'm sorry to zip through this so fast, but I really want to get into this because this is where I want to show you what's possible. I really want, number two, I want to talk to you about changing paths when the ones you're on aren't working for you. And people really get hung up here. So interestingly, 2 weeks ago, I was talking to another one of my kids. And this one is very successful in the field that he's in, and he loves the field that he's in, but he doesn't love the place where he works right now. So he's been having more and more issues. And so this 2 weeks ago, got a phone call and we were talking and he's like, I just don't know if I want to stay here. For him, it's not a career change. It's just, do I want to stay in this environment or do I want to change to a different company? And because of where he lives, he's got lots of options. And because of what he does and how successful he is, he has lots of options. So now it's a matter of, do I change paths? Do I change paths? Very different scenario than my other daughter that had to go through that last year. But how do you know when it's time to change paths? Well, the first thing is you have to answer the question, where are my paths taking me? Where are my paths taking me? And I want you to flip your notes over, and I want you to look at those paths that are just listed at the top. There are 10 paths there, and I want you to think, do I like where my paths are taking me? Do you like the financial path that you're on today? Do you like the career path you're on, the intellectual path, physical or health path? Do you like the parenting path, spiritual path? Only you can answer these questions. But honesty is essential. Do I like where the paths that I'm on are taking me? This last week I was reading in the book of Proverbs. If you want to read about paths, go read the book of Proverbs. So it's a fun little book in the Bible, and it's full of little quotes. And I was reading this, and this verse jumped off the page at me. It says, those too lazy to plow in the right season will have no food at the harvest. That's a path. That's a path. So here's what it is. And again, this was an agricultural society, and there was a lot of farmers around here. And so you get the concept. I mean, if you're a farmer and it's springtime and the land is ready to be plowed and to planted, and you're like, oh, I just want to see what's on Netflix. I want to binge watch Yellowstone. I'm going to be right here for the next, I'm not moving. All right. I'm planting, schmanting. Who wants to do that? And so, okay, so if you don't, that's a path. And where will that path take you? Will it take you to financial prosperity? In the fall, will it take you to career success when harvest comes? No, you know it, right? That path takes you to ruin. Financially, you're in trouble. When the harvest comes, you have nothing to harvest. He's saying it's a path. Your path is going to lead you somewhere. All of our paths are leading us places. Do we like where they're leading us? So let me ask you to think about one of those paths. Think about your financial path. Isn't it true right now that in America, there are people who are on a path that is resulting in them living paycheck to paycheck, no emergency savings at all, lots of debt, increasing debt, financial stress, financial fights. You know the number one conflict source in marriage, right? Fights about money. Isn't this true? I'm not making this up. There are a lot of people on this path. And it is ruining relationships and destroying their sense of joy and peace in this world. But you don't have to be on that path. I know lots of people who live on a different path, financial path, where they don't have stress and they live debt-free. They have savings for emergency, savings for retirement, and they live with peace in their relationships. I did not have that second path until I took a course called Financial Peace University. And I took it years ago, and I was on the first path, and I went through the course, and I got on the second path. And every single year I make a renewed commitment to live on the second path. Because everything in this world says, don't go down that path, because you can have everything you want right now. You don't have to wait for anything, save for anything. You can just go into debt. You can have it all now. You can have it. I drive a 2004 Vibe. Why are you driving a Vibe? It doesn't have heated seats, heated steering wheels. It can't hook your phone up to anything. I mean, it's like, geez, you could have a fun car. You could have and I live 7 minutes from my office. It's like, wow, you could have a really nice 7-minute drive. So it's like, who cares? But the world is relentless in its pursuit of getting us to go down a path that's not positive for us. So it's like, I choose. And I get to choose. My decision determines my destination. So all of us are on a path. So be honest with yourself, because some of you, if you're really honest this morning, you would say, oh, this is really key. If you want to know where you need to consider changing paths this year, think about areas where you are suffering pain right now, or where you can see pain coming for you. Pay attention to pain. Pain is often one of God's greatest tools to help us see when it's time to switch to a different path. When I was switching and getting a new career, I do this part-time. When I wanted to go into a different career, I've always loved the field of talent management, talent development. I've loved it since the first time I heard Patrick Lencioni, this guy who works in that field, speak at a leadership conference. Years and years and years and years, I'd hear this guy and I'd be like, man, I want to be like Patrick. I want to do that for a living. I just love what he does. I think it's amazing. I love his books. So when I decided to try and go into that field, the problem was I'd never finished my college degree. So it wasn't that there weren't plenty of jobs around in that field. There are. Leadership development jobs, talent development jobs, I just couldn't get them. I'd apply and I would never even get to the interview because I didn't have a college degree, and it was the ticket that got me into the door, and I didn't have it. And that was extremely painful because I couldn't go where I really wanted to go because of this one thing, this college degree. And God used that pain to get me to see the reality. In the world that I live in, this is the reality. And I needed to change in order to get where I wanted to go. Some of you are in pain today, and you would say, some of you are in pain financially. That button is really painful for you, and pushing that button. Or some of you are lonely in your marriage. Or you're not healthy emotionally. Your career isn't working out for you. Or you do not feel close to God. Matter of fact, some of you, if you were really honest, would say, I was closer to God last year at this time than I am right now. Pay attention to pain. Pain is telling you that that the direction you're heading isn't working and it's time to change directions. So what you do is you ask God this question: God, where do you want me to go? This is not a token question. This isn't, oh, he's a pastor, he's got to say that question. This is really, really important. You're going to hear that the next time I teach. I'm going to talk extensively about this question. But let me show you what the Bible says about, again, look at what it says about paths. The Bible says in Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. I love the bigness of these words. So he doesn't say trust in the Lord with your heart. What does he say? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do you? Do you trust in the Lord with all your heart? I don't. As the story about my daughter at the beginning told you, it's like, I don't trust him with someone. I might trust him with me a whole lot more than I trust him with my kids. It's like, oh boy. But he says, trust me, all your heart, and don't do this other thing. Don't lean on your own understanding, which is what we do, right? We're independent people. You just make decisions. You decide who you want to be in a relationship. You decide who you want to be in business with. You decide what you want for your career. You decide what you can do with your money. And he says, wrong way to go. He says, instead, if you'll do this, trust me, don't lean on your own understanding. And then he says this, in all your ways submit to him, then look what he will do with your paths. He'll straighten them out. And the key phrase here is, I submit my will to his will. You submit to him, and he'll make your path straight. Now, do not miss what he's saying. He's not saying that I'm going to do whatever I want, and God is going to just make every path I choose straight for me. That is not what it says. That's what we want it to say. That's when we get mad at God. It's like, I chose this for my career. It's not working out. God, you don't love me. Or I made this, and why am I in so much financial trouble? God doesn't love me. Why is my relationship falling apart? God doesn't love me. It's like, we didn't do the whole first part. We didn't submit our decision to him. We didn't ask for his guidance. We just made our own decision, asked him to bless our paths, and God will never do that. He says the first thing is we bring our will to him, and we say, what is your will in these areas of my life, God? What is your will? Sincerely, show me your will, and I'll do your will. And then he makes our path straight. But the path and the straightening of the path doesn't happen until after we've submitted our will. Like I said, I am really going to talk about this next time. I have so much to talk to you about with the will of God. I can't wait to share that with you. It's content I've been waiting to share with you for a long time. There's so much good stuff there. But here's the prayer I really want to challenge you to be praying at the start of this year. As a matter of fact, I want to give you a moment. I want you to say it to God right now. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be, just bow your head and just say those words to God. As I've been setting goals for the year, I've been praying that prayer because there's an area of my life right now where I'm like, I'm not sure, God. Matter of fact, there's two areas of my life where I'm just saying, what's your will? What's your will for me? because I know that he will make my path straight if I do what he wants. And boy, can I prove that next week. The third thing that you do then is, so then you do answer the question, where do I want to go? And this is, where do I want to go? Okay, so the first one is, God, where do you want me to go? Then the second one is, now where do I want to go? Where do I feel like I'd want to go? It's legitimate to ask. Some Christians are like, you can never ask that. That's selfish. No, it's okay to ask it if you ask the other one first. Because God often gives us the desires of our hearts. God puts in us desires. Not every desire I have in my heart is selfish. So it is legit to ask it, but it's legit to ask it only spiritually after you've asked the first one. God, where do you want me to go? Now, where do I want to go? And so if you looked at that list again, flip your notes back over. If you look at that list on the top, paths you're currently on, and if you were to say, if the end of 2022 brought you great things in these areas, what would that look like? What would be great for you in those areas? And think about where you want to go. And this is where goal setting comes into play. Now, I know some of you, your eyes immediately glaze over when I talk about goals. So I only talk about one time a year. This is it. You lucky people, you're here today because I love goals. So on the back of your notes at the bottom, I put the goals format that I have been using in my life for decades. I love goals, but goals done right are really powerful. Goals done wrong are just irrelevant. There are three pieces that I always use when I'm setting goals. The first is obviously the goal. What's the specific goal you're after? And you need to make it really specific. I'll give you an example of this in a moment. And then second is what people ignore is the excitement part. Why is this goal important to you? Why do you care? If you can't tell me why you care about it, not why your doctor cares about it, not why your spouse cares about it, not why your parents care about it or your boss cares about it, why you care about it, then you won't do it. Goals are hard to sustain if you don't care about them. You've got to think about, why do I care about this goal that I'm setting? And then you develop your action steps. That's the third thing. If people don't, a goal without action steps, that's just a wish. You might as well grab a genie's lantern and just rub the genie's bottle and hope that a genie pops out and grants you your wish. It's not going to happen without action steps. You've got to define how you're going to make the goal happen, or it's just a wish. But here's what I've learned in decades of, here's an example, by the way. In 2019, I went back to college. Finally. It was a disturbing thing and very challenging because I had earned over 100 credits, so I should have only needed 20 more credits to graduate. Oh yeah. Try and transfer college credits into any college in America today. It was maddening. The most I could get was 60 college credits transferred in. I applied at 4 different colleges before I finally it was all 60. It's like, that meant I was starting over. I had 2 years of college to go, and I was working full-time and part-time here, and I'm like, really? I had 60 college credits. I broke it out even at it's like, it's going to take me 3 years to do this. Ugh. So I started in 2019. In 2020, when I was setting my goals, here's what I set for this one area of my life, my educational one. I wanted to complete 18 credits that year toward my goal. So excitement, yeah, I'll be closer to my degree. And I broke it out by quarter. So 1 class in the first quarter, then, because it was math, the second math class. So that's why there was only 1 that's like, because I'd already done a math class the semester before that, and I'm like, never again will I take another class with math, period. It will be math alone. So that's why there was only 3. Then after that, I'm like, all right, so then math is behind me, then I can do more, and you can see the goal for that year was 24 credits. Now notice how measurable it was. It was exciting to me. Now you may not care about your degree. You may already have your degree. You may not think you may not care about a degree, but I cared about this because I wanted to be in talent management and couldn't get there without it. So it was very exciting to me. So I really put this goal together and started working on my plan. But the key is this. Again, on your notes, I want you to write this down. In order for your goals to actually work this year, if you want to set goals, you've got to make them heartfelt and visual. You've got to picture yourself accomplishing it. You've got to make it heartfelt. You have to care about it. And again, many of you don't care about a college degree, but I really cared about it. I really wanted that. It'd been something I'd wanted for a long, long time. If you don't care about it, you won't go after it. Or when it gets difficult, you'll just quit. If you don't care about it, when it gets difficult, you'll quit. And it got difficult. I mean, the only way that I could do what I was doing with full-time job, part-time job, and then by the end of it, I was a full-time college student, is that I would take a full week of vacation at the start of every semester. And most of those classes that I was taking were entirely paper based on writing papers. Because it was a remote school, they couldn't verify that you weren't cheating on your tests, and they didn't want to proctor all your exams. So they made you write 10 to 14 page papers, APA formatted, all the time. So over and over again, and I hate the phrase APA formatted. Ugh, I never wanted to do another APA formatted paper again. Didn't even know what that meant when I started, know what it means now, and I hate it. And you can only use certain resources, and it was exhausting. And I would sit there, no, I'm not kidding you, I'd sit in the chair in my living room some days as long as 14 hours doing nothing but writing papers. And I would take a week of vacation, and all I would do for that week is write. And I would try and do as much of my homework for the entire semester in that 1 week in order to accomplish my goal. Because I couldn't keep up. Once I started taking 3 and 4 classes a semester, I couldn't keep up with the workload if I tried to work a full-time job, a part-time job. And I was, engaged to be married, and it was like, something's got to give. So I used vacation time to do school. Now, you only do that if you care about the goal, right? You have to figure out why you care. If you can't name it, why you care, and it doesn't make you go, yeah, then you'll never do it. You have to figure that out for you. And then you have to define those steps. What action steps will I take to get there? This is where, again, people blow it. They don't define the specific action steps. I'm going to get in a new job this year. Okay, some of you, there are people who are setting that right now. They're going to set the goal this year. They're going to get into a new career, something more satisfying, something they want to be in, right? Like I wanted to be in. And they're going to say, this is my goal. And then they'll say, and they could even be excited about it, right? Because they hate their job so much. Great, you've got the first 2, but then you say, what are the steps you're going to take? And they're like, I don't know. It's just a wish then. And it will not come true. This isn't Disney. This is real life. If you don't define the action steps and create a plan, then it's not going to happen. You have to get to the point where you're defining your steps. So define your steps. If you can't make it obvious, if you're like, I just don't know what to do, here's what the Bible says: a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions, and the simpleton goes blindly on, and they suffer the consequences. So the imagery of this is like a person standing in the middle of the highway. They're like, man, that's a big truck coming right at me. Man, that's a big truck. That's going to hurt. That's going to really hurt bad. Man, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's like, right? And they're just bracing for impact. It's like, there's another option, right? Take steps. Change paths. You don't have to let the pain continue. You can change paths. The Bible says, don't be the fool. Standing there and suffering the consequences, get on a new path. So how do you do that when you don't know what action steps to take? The first thing is, the Bible would say, is talk to successful people who are already successful where you want to go. So what successful person or persons can you talk to? And look what the Bible says about it. Wise friends will do what to you? They'll make you wise. But you hurt yourself by going around with fools. So if you want wisdom to know how to get onto a new path, talk to people who are already there. Think about it this way. Let's say that you need to go to Altoona, and you don't have a clue where Altoona is. Okay? And you got 2 people standing in front of you, one of whom grew up in Altoona, and the other person has never even heard of Altoona. Who are you going to get directions from, right? You're going to talk to the person who's already been there and knows it well and knows how to get there, right? So what we tend to do when we're thinking about changing our paths is we talk to people who have no idea because they've never been there. If you want to change financial paths, talk to somebody who's financially successful, right? Make sense? Don't talk to your broke brother. He doesn't know. He's never been there. You want to change paths in your marriage? Talk to someone who's a great marriage. You want to change paths in your career? Find somebody in the career that you want to go to and talk to them. One of the things I started doing when I was in school is as I started building a little team of people that were very successful in the field that I wanted to go into. I had 5 people I talked to. 4 of them I talked to all the time. 1 of them I talked to almost every single Monday. Because these were already in the field that I wanted to be in, and they were successful. The stuff I got from them was solid gold. As a matter of fact, a job opened up because of 2 of those relationships. So talk to the people who are already there. Think about where you want to go, and you're like, okay, I don't know what to plan to create. How do I make these action steps? Well, talk to people who are already there, because they know how to get there. They're already there. So you got to talk to them. So go find them. And by the way, people love talking about themselves. It's the number one thing people want to talk about is I have never been turned down by anyone who I've reached out to say, hey, could I talk to you about how you got where you are? You seem really successful in that. Nobody's ever said, no, I don't want to talk about me. Never. They all want to talk. So what if this is true? What if you will never reach your full potential without tapping into the wisdom of others? What if that's true? Because I happen to actually believe that that's true. That means you've got to talk to people who are ahead of you to learn from them. And then the other piece of the people piece that's really important to answer is who can I report to about this? And report to, I know, is kind of a formal word. But I really want to tell you about how much this has changed my goal setting over the years. I used to just set goals individually. I'd set my goals every January. Here's my goals, what I want to accomplish, and I'd go do them. And some years I was more successful than others. But about 5 years ago, Matt, the guy who's editing the video for this, I reached out to Matt and I said, Matt, you want to set goals with me? Let's be like accountability partners and encourage each other. And we didn't really know what we were doing. And we were like, okay. So we sat down, we set goals. And then initially we were like, well, we will talk all the time. And we were like, well, that didn't happen. But what ended up happening in the early years was that on Saturday mornings, and pretty much every other Saturday morning, I'd get my goals out and I'd read through my goals. What am I working on? If you don't, by the way, goals are not set it and forget it. You will never achieve your goals if you set them and forget them. You have to review them. And so what I would do is I'd go through my goals and I would put the date down and I would write a little summary of what I'd gotten done. And then I would send that email summary to Matt. In the early days, it was every other week. And then he would review it and let me know what comments or questions he had, and he would send his back. And that piece drove so much success in our goals because it kept our goals in front of each other all year long. So I would not ever do goals again without a person in my life who's going to help and be there for me like that, because it's made it so much more effective. Now, blah, 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 goals. Brian's talking about goals. He always talks about goals. So let me tell you why this is so important, okay? I've told this story again and again. I'm going to tell it till all of you know it. I told it so much so that some of my kids can repeat it back to me. By the way, the daughter that made it into the new career, she knows this story. She told me about this story when she was doing this, when she was making her new path. There was a man, one of my favorite counselors, a Christian counselor named Dr. Henry Cloud. If you want to read a good author this year, read everything he has. It will amaze you. Dr. Henry Cloud was doing a seminar, and one day this young woman came up and she said, I got this problem, I want to talk about it. And so she started talking about her job. She hates her job. She hates her job. And so Dr. Cloud said, well, what would you do if you didn't do this? And she said, well, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an attorney. Since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an attorney. All my life, I wanted to be a lawyer. He said, what do you do now? She said, I'm in the loan industry. And he goes, and you don't like it? She said, I hate it. I love the people I work with, but I hate it. And he said, well, how long would it take you to go back to school and start practicing law? And she said, 3 years. And that was like the end of the story for her. So Dr. Cloud was wise enough to say, well, here's a question for you. Do you plan to be alive in 3 years? And she was like, well, I certainly hope so. And he said, okay. So then that date is going to happen for you. So my question for you is, in 3 years, since you've already said you're going to be alive on that day, 3 years from now, hopefully, 3 years from now, do you want to be starting your new career as a lawyer, doing what you've always wanted to do, or do you still want to be hating your life every single day as a loan officer? Because you've already said that 3 years is coming. What do you want? That story, when I heard it, and again, I've told it over and over again, is just so significant. Listen, here's the thing about paths, what I love about paths. If you just get yourself onto the right path, time is going to pass. Time passes. You don't have a choice about whether time passes, right? You don't have any choice. Time is going to pass. And time is either going to bring you more of what you want or more of what you don't want. But you don't have the choice about time passing. You only have the choice about this. Will the passing of time bring me closer to what I want or further from what I want? That's the only thing. And that's the real power of paths. Get on the right path, let time pass, and it brings you what you want. Do you know what do you know what time brought me in 2021? In 2021, I graduated from college. For 3 years, I did all of that stuff so that I could earn this. And shortly after earning this, I got the job in talent management that is my dream job that I do for a living right now. Time's going to pass. You don't have a choice. The only question is, will the passing of time bring you more of what you want or what you don't want? So here's what I want you to know as we finish today. I really want you to know that you can make real change in 2022. I want you to know that. You can make real change in 2022. You have a choice about what this year is going to bring you. You're not a victim. There's no need to blame anyone else. And you also know that we're going to turn around and snap our fingers and we're going to be back here and I'm going to be doing this message again next year, right? You all know that. Time just goes so fast. So make sure that time is going in the way you want. The other thing is some of you are like, oh, I've set my goals and they can never change. It can change goals. As the year goes on, I had to change goals. I had goals, very specific goals for 2021. Besides this one, I had other things that I had in there, and I had to change because halfway through this year, my fiance said, hey, why don't we get married in 5 months? So all of a sudden, my goals changed. So my goals changed so that could happen in October. 5 months to plan and pull off a wedding and get married. And so we had to change. I'm saying don't be rigid in your goals. Life changes and things happen, and it's like if you need to make adjustments along the way, then make adjustments along the way. It's okay. Some of you are like, well, I can never change my goals. Yeah, you can. You can change your goals as you keep moving, but time is always passing. Is it going to bring you what you want or more of what you don't want? Get on the right path and let time bring you what you want, because it's a lot more fun. It's not fun in the beginning, but it is a lot more fun in the end. Now, let me have you all bow your heads as we finish up today. Now, we have talked about God being a God, and we're going to really get into that next time we get together. A God who wants to personally guide you, but he doesn't want to do it from apart from you. He wants to do it literally from within you. The promise of Christianity is that our God promises to make his home inside of us. This is what he is ready to do for any human being who wants it. He will personally guide you through life if you'll let him in. And the Bible says that is a decision that you and I individually have to make. And it's only available because of what Jesus did when he died on the cross and paid for us. It paid for the things we've done that are wrong. So that anyone who asks for his gift of forgiveness, you don't just get forgiven. He comes to make his home inside you. And a personal God is here to guide us. So if this is what you want, with your head bowed, you can just say something like this in your heart. Say, Jesus, I don't want you from a distance. I want you inside me today. Please forgive me. Please make your home inside of me today. I want you to start guiding me in the way I need to be guided. And for all of us, we want to just pray, Father, where do you want us to go in 2022? What path should we be on? We just really need your guidance, God. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, as we finish up, I want to ask you all, if you wouldn't mind taking this little connection card out of your program. If you're a regular attender, just put your name down. Let us know you're here. But maybe some of you prayed and asked for his gift of forgiveness. Just check this box and let us know what you've done, or you renewed your commitment, or you want us to pray about something big in your life. This is how you communicate with us as a church. We've got a team of people that will pray for you. Then fill this out, and then just drop it in one of the 2 offering boxes back on the back wall where you came in. Also, on your way out, please grab one of those devotionals. They're yours. So you're welcome to take one until they're gone. And if we run out of the one that you want, let me know. We're going to order more. So thanks so much for coming. Hope to see you again next time.